Hi witchlings, welcome back to my channel. It is me, your local chaotic witch aunt. And today we're talking about integrating a new spirit into your house. I don't know if other people do this. I personally approach spirit work as, I'm an animist, so everything has a spirit, and a lot of times there are more intense spirits and there are more chill spirits. And whenever I bring a new plant into the house, whenever I bring a new animal spirit into the house, there's kind of a process I go through. And originally this started for me, the way I do this started in 2022 when I brought a second fox spirit into my house. And I put the first, she's gonna be up in this corner here. Her name is Scorch. So I brought Scorch in and I put her next to my other fox spirit, which is an effigy for my familiar. And she had a fit. She knocked things over a lot for 3 days until I'm like, okay, do you want to be put somewhere else? I put her somewhere else, and all the knocking over stopped. And so from there, I kind of adapted a process when bringing in not just bones and plants, but also whenever I'm kind of inviting a new spirit into my space, there are a few things that I like to have at the ready. Depending on the spirit, I like to make sure that there is a completely untouched location just for them. Some spirits like to be grouped together. My little prairie dog skull sits with one of my fox skulls. However, and some of my plants like to be grouped together. Some of my plants also enjoy being on my working altar, namely my prayer plants. And if you're sitting here being like, Frankie, those aren't spirits. Yes, they are. These are spirits. And they tell me exactly what they want. Don't you beautiful? Oh, he looks so fantastic. Look at that. Putting on a new leaf for me. For us. Soft kiss. And so sometimes I already know from experience that a plant likes to be in a certain location. And I'm factoring in light, etc. But for all the spirits that I bring in, having a dedicated location, even if they move over time, having a dedicated location that's just for them is very big for me. So for my mandragora, for my Tradescantia plant, I originally put her in here up high, and then there was a point where she wasn't getting enough light, so I moved her with some of my other plants. She likes it. There's a lot more light that she can get there. When I started working more frequently with St. Anthony, I had wanted to set up a little space for him. So he has a space on my desk. He is the only saint present on my desk, even though there are other spirits present on my desk. And they kind of coalesce into my money altar. And I like to keep St. Anthony on my desk and in my work area because he's one of the saints I go to for finances and for that kind of stuff. On the other hand, there are certain spirits that I know from experience that they love being with other spirits. I don't know, I don't have anything, this is my opinion. My UPG is that my philodendron fuzzy petiole survives because it's next to my Cebu blue. I don't know why they like being together, they love it. And so moving forward, I kept putting my philodendrons either with other philodendrons or with pothos, and they all are having a fantastic time. I also recently brought into my house a taxidermied hedgehog. Her name is Captain Reginald, and she hangs out on the top of my bookshelf. So I always start off with them by themselves, and then over time I'm able to kind of discern whether or not they want another spirit with them, or that is their space and they don't want anyone else there. Scorch that's her space on top of my books in my hanging shelf. That is her space. No one else is allowed in it. Versus my other kind of fox spirits are okay with hanging out on my working altar, like all together. Scorch likes to be by herself, and we love her for that. I'm recently kind of, I'm prepping to integrate a new spirit into the house, which I'll show you him. This is him. Yeah, so I don't have a name for him. He needs hella degreasing. So the thing about, especially when you have spirits attached to bones or spirits attached to things, there's a big portion of it that is you need to process them. And it doesn't matter how much you're like, oh, this dead rabbit's so cute. Process that shit before you bring it inside. So with this deer spirit who was in the free pile at my work and came from one of my coworkers, he's a little quiet. He's a little quiet right now. I have other like antlers that embody more spirit at this point than him. So what the plan is that I'm going to degrease him, and during the degreasing process I am going to be giving offerings to like the land and to the spirit of the deer, just to kind of pull him out his shell a little bit, because I'm not just working with him as a spirit, I'm working with him as a deer spirit. When I'm bringing a spirit into my home, when I'm integrating a new spirit, I am taking into consideration what kind of spirit it is. I may be bringing it in for a particular purpose, the uses, or if I'm going to work with it at all, what am I going to be doing? This is terrible lighting. Can I just... That's actually a little better. Okay, well, the light's terrible, so this is what you get. There's a lot of aspects into bringing a spirit in that kind of go into this. And like I said, the first one for me is location. The next one, before location even takes place, I'm thinking about, why do I want to bring this spirit into my house? Is it because I want to work with them on a particular ritual? Is it because I have worked with this spirit before and I want to bring in another spirit similar? So like animal spirits. I have a lot of rabbit spirits in my home, a lot of fox spirits in my home. Deer, I also have a lot of spirits, but most of them are not like full. Like I have things that embody the spirit of the deer, but I don't have a deer spirit in my house. Now I do. These antlers shed every year. So they embody this, and they embody the like deer itself, but they aren't necessarily like a deer spirit, because that deer spirit's still fucking walking around downtown like new set of antlers. Who this? Thinking about why I want to bring a spirit in. Contrary to popular belief, I am pretty picky with what spirits with what spirits I bring into my space, and what spirits I invite into my space. If I don't understand why yet, I am probably not going to do it, because for me the why is really important, and I don't want to bring a spirit into my space saying I just want you here, and then like I want to end up changing my mind, so it's, why do I want to bring this spirit into my space? And especially when we're talking about bones, plants, with plants, you're taking on the responsibility of a living being. They have spirits, they care, and it doesn't to make you feel bad if you killed plants. I've killed plenty of plants because we just didn't get along. I've also thrown out plenty of plants when they have fungus gnats, and I refuse to deal with those again. But even then with my plants, I know which types of plants I get along with really well now, and I'm very picky. I don't bring any calatheas into the house. I don't bring any alocasias into the house. I'm very picky with what kind of Hoyas I bring into the house. I love my monsteras. I love my pothos, my marantas, my philodendrons. All my peperomias are struggling right now, which is really interesting. It's probably because I forgot to water them. But last year I literally just ignored them for weeks on end and they were fine. Now they need to be watered once a week. Excuse me. So I'm wondering if a repot will help. One or two of them are already dead. One of my trailing peperomia is doing fantastic. So what gives? So after location, or even before location, I'm thinking about, why do I want to bring the spirit in and what is the goal? After why, I'm thinking about who the spirit is. I'm thinking about what they may want, if they're going to be a spirit that gets along with the other spirits I have in my space. With plants, a lot of the time, they're pretty chill. You know, they're like, they're pretty communicative. If they're in a place they don't want to be, they will not do well, they will have brown leaves, they will droop, they will get upset. So then once that's happening, you know, the location they're in isn't good. And although that's mostly based on water, light, etc., and humidity, it's also based on which plants they have around them. And that is my unverified personal gnosis. So bringing, when I think I want a new plant, I'm thinking about what kind of plant do I want it to be, kind of looking at the plant, watching the plant for a little while, and then buying it, or bringing it home. When I'm bringing in things like tools, the why and the who are very important. A lot of times the tools that I'm bringing in, like candles, I'm not necessarily waking up the spirit yet. They're still kind of, as I say, dormant, similar to herbs, roots, stems, twigs, etc. are kind of dormant until you wake them up. So when I'm bringing in things like dried herbs, tools, etc., and those spirits I feel are like not there, I am, you know, taking time to wake them up and welcome them and maybe give them an offering. And now the light is behind the pine tree and I can do a little scoot forward again. One of the spirits that two spirits I most recently welcomed in my space are these iron scissors. Iron in Italian American folk magic wards off the evil eye, and the fact that they're scissors, which are another thing that are used frequently in like evil eye cures, big yes. These babies I didn't necessarily wake up, but iron itself kind of has a spirit that I am trying to work with a little more. Especially as something that wards off the evil eye. And of course, Mascopa cards, which are vintage decks. They got a lot of energy. They got a lot of sass in here. And so when I'm bringing in spirits, I'm thinking about, what does this spirit want? How should I treat it? Are they gonna want an offering right away? Are they gonna want something else? I brought in a particular spirit to help me with one of the oils I made, and automatically he was like, let me do my job. Put me in the wormwood. So the wormwood was an offering to him, but also he was helping me charge it with like their vibe. So automatically he came into the house. He didn't want a space. He didn't want an altar, an offering. I had already paid when I picked up the dirt. He was like, let me do my shit. So I was like, all right, go. Like, put him in the wormwood. I was happy. Integrating new spirits are oftentimes thinking about not just what you want from that spirit, but like I said, who the spirit is. Is this a spirit or a entity that's gonna need its own space? And if it doesn't need its own space, are you integrating it into a particular area to help you with something? Like, for example, when I bring in spirits, this is me with my money altar, they go straight on the money altar. I wake them up, I'm like, good morning, here. On the other hand, spirits such as Fox, which I work with a lot, but I don't call in like on specific workings unless I like really need his help. He just kind of hangs out all around my space. And deer, this deer specifically, we are hoping of trying to figure out a way to hang him over the door so he can help protect the space. So as I'm integrating this new spirit, I'm also thinking about, this is the goal, that I want his assistance with this working, with protecting my space. So what does it look like to not only bring him in, but ask if he wants to help me with that? To kind of start implementing him in my protective rituals, to ask him even if it's okay to implement him in my protective rituals. Because before you do a working with a spirit, you gotta ask. That's the thing. And a lot of people sit here, we did this in the video with Olivia, which you can watch here or here. They're like, well, what does a no sound like? You know what a no sounds like. You will know the moment you feel it. The no's that I have received from spirits have ranged from a feeling of like nausea, to a slight headache, to being sick for a week. The last one was my own damn fault, all right? So, but it was a no. It was like, I was considering of working with this entity, and I got sick for a week, and I'm like, this is the craziest fucking no I've ever received. And all of these kind of, like, before you even bring a spirit in, you are, you know, saying, I'm gonna take care of you. I'm going to spend time honoring you and venerating you and maybe work with you. At least for me, that's when I'm bringing spirits into the house, that's what I'm doing. Even though I may not be working with all of them in a way that's like, here's this working, do it. I'm learning from all of them at all times. The Monstera in my corner, Umbrello, has taught me a lot in his time here. Mainly proper watering techniques. So if you're like, you know, petitioning a saint, a lot of times when we petition saints, you ask for help with the petition, and then if the petition goes through, you give an offering. Like, this is what I'll give you if this petition is fulfilled. So you have to think, like, is this a saint you want to honor more frequently and venerate and bring more into your practice? If so, where are you gonna put them? Because for me, I have my ancestor altar, I have my working altar, I have little kind of shrines set up to certain saints with other altars intertwined. But if I'm not ready and I don't have the space to set up like a full altar for someone, I'm not gonna promise that. I will, however, promise of getting something in their honor and like calling on them when I need it. I actually owe someone some pound cake. Nice. Actually, I don't know if the petition is fulfilled yet. I have to revisit and really think about, is this ready? And so you're thinking location, you're thinking why, you're thinking who, right? Now you have to think, I always talk about rules for my spirits in my space, okay? And what that looks like is I bring them in and I say, hi, welcome to the house. Here's a glass of water. This is the setup. This is where you're going to be. If you have any problems, please knock something over, but not something that will break. Do not tilt yourself off of something, okay? Like, just give me a little notice. You can knock over books, you can knock over matchbox. Please no knocking over of the other spirits, and do not fuck with anyone in the house. I've had that happen before. I had a house spirit at my old house that would fuck with my sister a little bit, and I think he only did it because it was playful and funny, and he was like, haha. And I was like, please stop. And he's like, okay. I'm like, stop knocking over laundry. Rules are important, not because you want all these spirits to like do exactly as you say. Like, you need to recognize that being a spirit worker, being an animist, is honoring all of these things as spirits, as things, as people and relationships you are cultivating with like around them. That's important to recognize, and sometimes it's also recognizing that a spirit is not meant for you. They either do not get along with your other spirits, they just don't want to work with you, they don't want to be in your space, they want to be somewhere else. And that's a no. When they make that clear, you say, all right, who do you want to go to? Because I'm not going to sit around. I've had a few haunted objects once, and while having those haunted objects, I'm like, well, I can either rehabilitate this spirit, or I can send it to someone else, or I can just get rid of it. And a lot of times I'm like, I don't want to spend this huge chunk of time only focusing all my energy on this one spirit, because there are so many here that I have to pay attention to. So a lot of times that will look like, all right, who wants a haunted object? If not, I'm gonna bury it and release the spirit. So it's about knowing your boundaries. It's about knowing what you want your spiritual practice and your spirit work to look like. It's also, it's also about not getting overwhelmed. It's about knowing what is too much for you. For me, a lot of the spirits that actually are in my space are animal spirits, plant spirits, saints, and, you know, inanimate objects, which is pretty good. That's pretty chill. Like, that's a nice setup. I know that if I'm bringing in another spirit that I work with into my space, I want to know why. As certain spirits I don't want in my house all the time. I don't want the crossroads spirits with me in my space all the time. I want to go to the crossroads and talk to them, not, hey everyone, good morning, and they're like, you're gonna hit a lot of traffic today, and I'm gonna be like, so knowing what kind of, because a lot of the work I do is with ancestral plant allies, it's with saints, it's with divine beings, etc. Even Diana, even though I have a statue for her in my house, her main altar at this point is in one of the trees in the backyard. It's a pine tree. And I go out there to this pine and I am, using it to commune with Diana, but I am also communing with the pine spirit itself. I am not just going up and saying, you're an altar, you don't have any feelings. I'm going, do you want to help me with this working? Da, 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 da. Spirit work always is recognition of, and especially if you're an animist, it's recognition of the fact that every spirit deserves to be asked. Deserves to kind of have some time given to it out of the day. It's giving offerings, veneration, etc. When we recognize that everything has a spirit, even the things we create, there's a level to this that becomes easier and more intrinsic. Because before you bring anything home, you kind of sit with it and you're like, do you want to come home with me? I typically do this for things too that I find at the thrift store, objects that are vintage, etc. I'm, very picky about that. I'm like, well, do you want to come to my house? And when everything has a spirit, you don't want the house to get too crowded, so you start thinking kind of less materially and more like, why do I want this? Like, why do I want to bring this home with me? And that allows me at least space to kind of really think like, do I need this right now? Or am I just like on a roll? I'm on a rampage. You'll probably see more of the integration or at least like the prep for spell work with this particular spirit and what that looks like in another video. Because right now I need to degrease him and I need to just kind of not wake him up, but I need to really kind of bring him in. Like, I've gotten roots before that I'm like, there ain't nothing here. These dudes are sleepy or they are dead. Like levels to it that like, sometimes the spirit just isn't there or it's not for you, and recognizing when that happens. But I can still feel this dear spirit and I know, I'm like, I kind of want to bring it in a little bit, give him some space to adjust and give him a place of honor in my home. One of the other spirits that like when I began working with Mandrake, immediately Mandrake and I were doing a working together. And when I woke her up and helped her with this working, she's been like fucking up my life for 2 weeks. In the best possible way, and I know exactly why it's happening and like the reasons behind it, right? Like, it's not without reason. However, when you bring a spirit in and you have it in your space and you're working with it, you never know exactly what's going to happen. You never know if everything's going to go exactly the way you planned. And I think that I have a tendency to bring in spirits in my life that are really like doing things their way. So there's, location, location, why, who, and then kind of moving from there, rules, saying, dude, this is okay, this isn't okay. And then to kind of wrap up integration, once you set up this location, once you kind of give them space and give them time to acclimate, if you want to do a working with them, you approach them, you say, please help me with this. I like to give offerings for a decent chunk of time before I ask a spirit, and especially a new spirit, to help me with the working. That is a personal thing. A lot of times if I'm asking for the pine in my backyard, I may just, and like he's received offerings that were like for Diana, but also kind of for him. I ask, do you want to help me with this? And I give it to him, and then I kind of, go out a little bit more frequently to my backyard. I pay attention to him, I give him time, space, etc. When I began working with Mandrake and immediately brought her in and woke her up and brought her into this working with me, I have been like weekly feeding her. Mandragora weekly receives kind of a offering. That may be brandy, that may be wine, that may be a new anointing of an oil, it may be me adding like something to the spell. And she's sitting on a bed of offerings as well. So there's a level to it that is like, you have to pay more attention when you're asking of something like assistance with a working or assistance with protection. There's a lot more that goes into that than just having a spirit in your space because you like having that spirit in your space. And as soon as we begin working with them, we need to an extent, center them. We need to make sure that we're giving those offerings. We need to make sure we're fulfilling our end of the bargain when it comes to petitions. On the other hand, like St. Anthony is on my money altar, he has petitions under his feet, and he has like a little jar of offering. And I've noticed that it's starting to dissolve, which is wild. Not dissolve, it's like dissipating. And I'm like, how is this happening? You're in a jar and you're alcohol. What? Also, I think there's like some beliefs around not wanting to give St. Anthony alcohol because he can get sleepy. I say this as an Italian American folk practitioner. I've had no issues giving him alcohol, and I don't give him like alcohol as like, here's a drink. I'm giving him like an Amaro I made, which is fully okay. I think that that is a different tradition. I've never encountered that belief in Italian American folk magic. I do, however, know that he is a slower moving spirit than, let's say, St. Expedite. And because he's a slower moving spirit, I do like kind of sometimes giving him like things that will kind of speed him up. That's okay. The Amaro I made though is like mostly herbal. It's like an herbal remedy. So I'm like, here's an herbal remedy. There you go. And he really likes it. He has other offerings as well. So totally depends on the ways in which you work with the spirits. Cause like even that, like different traditions have different ideas around spirits and how you should work with them. And this is just mine personally. This is how I work with them. There are certain spirits in my house, in certain areas of my house, that receive an offering every day. Not everyone receives an offering every day, but I do like to refresh the offerings. I don't just set it down and leave it. But typically my working altar receives a glass of water or brandy every day or once a week, and it's always there. And my ancestor altar has water and sometimes olive oil and sometimes wine that is refreshed. If I, once again, Mandragora, who I'm actively working with, receives something every week. Mary, because her altar is more of a shrine, she just kind of hangs out. I have to clean up her altar. It's looking a little messy. But I did put a rose as an offering recently. I like to give her fresh flowers as offerings, or doing actual devotional things for her is what I like to do. Apart from that, plants, like offerings of light and water. Don't forget to water your plants, especially if you're using them as a protection ward. Bad idea. And the spirits that are outside that I work with, offerings, once a month, every couple weeks, and especially if I'm working with those spirits on something. The crossroads spirits that I work with, the Lares Competales, are working with me with my road opener oil, which is not yet released. So they're receiving like some drinks and some coins pretty frequently. Hi, Mr. Baby. Mr. Baby, and don't forget to feed your living spirits too. The babies that are not yet spirits. They still spirits though. Don't forget to feed your animals and yourself. You are your ancestors and you are a living spirit as well. There's a lot of care that goes into this, and there's a lot of mindfulness that goes into when we are bringing someone new into the home. Because what I always say is, if it's a spirit, like an animal spirit, it is the equivalent of having that animal in your home spiritually. Do you want that? No, don't do it. Every spirit is a relationship that takes time and cultivation, especially when we're bringing them into a space that is very spiritual active or has a lot of people in there. There is a level of mindfulness, there is a level of dedication that's taken to tuning into them and asking me like, do you want to be here? And if they don't, you kind of move from there. I know from firsthand experience that having the wrong spirit, a spirit that is not ready for you in your space, really is, it's very jarring, and it can be very jarring for all of your spirits, your house spirits, the spirits you have in your home. Oh, another thing, you need to make sure your house spirits are going to get along with the spirit you're bringing in there in your space. If they don't, it's going to be a rough time, because at the end of the day, the house is the spirit that you're literally inhabiting. And even though in like Roman Animism, they break it down a little more into like spirits of the cupboard, spirits of this, you know, but house spirits are prioritized and need to be prioritized, which means cleaning, keeping them nice, giving some water, giving little offerings when you can as a thank you to the threshold and the land you're on. Because if the house spirit is unhappy, then the rest of the spirits are going to be inside an unhappy spirit. It's a disaster. And maybe I'll make a video, a longer video talking more about house spirits, because this is more about deciding whether or not to bring like a new spirit that was originally outside the house in, and how to approach that, and what you need to think about when doing that. And so at the end of the day, this is something that requires a lot of self-awareness of being like, is this spirit for me? Is this a spirit that wants to come home with me? Or is this a spirit I have a connection to that I can begin to start venerating in this space? And if not, don't. Just don't. But there is a lot of self-awareness and mindfulness that go in. So you have kind of some ideas. You have, for me, it's, you know, the setting up a location and prepping for them to come, thinking about why I want them before I even think about location. Like, is this something, why is it here? How, or no, who is it? Are they gonna get along with everyone else? And then when you bring them in, kind of making time and space to welcome them, offerings, etc. Kind of paying attention to how they're behaving in your spiritual space in case they're not happy, what you can do to change that. And from there, if you want to work with them, how you should go about approaching that, which is literally just going up and being like, do you want to help me with this? So those are kind of some things. And like I said, there's going to be a full other video about this deer spirit, and maybe doing a spell and working with them and how I'm going to approach that. But I'll keep you updated, and you may see some footage of the processing of like the degreasings that are on Patreon, or in a vlog type video that I'm making this week. But yeah, thank you so much for watching and tuning in on this conversation. I hope you have an amazing rest of your day. Don't forget to like, subscribe, comment, and turn the bell on, but absolutely no pressure. Remember to drink water. It's hot out. And enjoy the rest of your day. Siate benedetti.